Welcome once again to Along the Rio Grande. I'm George Torok, and today we have in our studio Mr. Frank Gorman from the Texas Historical Commission. And Mr. Gorman is going to tell us a little bit about what the Commission does and talk about some of the projects that they're involved in the El Paso area. Mr. Gorman, welcome to Along the Rio Grande.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Maybe we could start by talking a little bit about what the Texas Historical Commission is.
Well, it's a commission, as the name historical indicates. It's involved in many aspects of history, and that would include archaeology, history as such, architecture relating to historical locations. Plus, they're involved in economic promotion. They've got a wonderful program called the Main Street Program, where they attempt to rehabilitate downtowns that have been struggling. They currently are involved in trying to stimulate interest in historic and heritage tourism, because that's a very significant factor, and the legislature has recently charged them, the Historical Commission, with this type of promotion. So it's quite diverse.
So it covers a broad range, not just identifying resources, but developing resources and working a lot of programs around history topics of different sorts.
Exactly.
How did the Commission get started?
Well, it was started back in 1953, and it had a different name, and I like to refer to this to make sure that it was called initially the Texas State Historical Survey Committee. And then in 1973, the name was changed to what we have here, which is the Texas Historical Commission.
Is it different than it was when it was founded?
Yes, in the sense that the legislature through the years has asked or caused the commission to absorb other smaller agencies, and that's one of the reasons for the diversity that currently exists.
So it's taken in a lot of different functions besides just surveying historical resources.
That's correct.
Does it have a specific purpose or mission? Is it to educate the population? Is it to preserve buildings, or does it cover many different ranges?
You've just hit on several. It does those, plus others. The mission is, as I've indicated, quite diverse. Promote understanding and interest in history and historical locations. They do have programs that have financial incentives for preservation purposes. From an archaeological standpoint, well, they are the resource for Texas. So if someone is in the process of developing a subdivision, for example, and there's concern that perhaps there may be archaeological resources there, you contact the Texas Historical Commission, and they have extensive records which would indicate whether you have immediate clearance or perhaps it's going to require further investigation, which they can provide.
Who's on the commission? What type of people are involved?
Well, the commission is comprised of 18 people, and their backgrounds are quite diverse, and from a geographical standpoint, quite diverse. Now, here in El Paso, as of about 6 months ago, we have a second commissioner, Juan Sandoval, who is the currently with the city. He's a city tax assessor collector. But we have people from Houston, from San Antonio, Austin, Brownsville, Lubbock, Terrell, Dallas, undoubtedly I'm Austin, forgetting several, but it's quite diverse as far as geographic location is concerned.
How does a person end up on the commission?
Well, he's appointed by the governor, and it's kind of luck. When there's typically you serve for a 6-year term, and every 2 years, 6 people go off of the commission, so every 2 years there are 6 new openings.
I see. And how did you get involved in history projects? How did you develop an interest in this type of material? What led you eventually to the commission?
Well, while I was educated as an engineer, I have a degree in electrical engineering, and my work was primarily in that area. I've always been interested in history, and so I've been a member of the El Paso County Historical Society for a number of years, and then I served as president for 2 years. And it was at that time, when I was president, that I received this appointment. That's probably what caused it.
Are you an El Paso native?
75 years. I was born and raised here, lived here all my life.
And you've had an interest in the history of the area most of your life?
I have that, and we've got a tremendous, rich resource here of history that has really never been properly explained and exploited.
Mr. Sandoval, you mentioned, is now on the commission also. Is it rare to have two people from El Paso on the commission at the same time?
It sure is, and when Juan was appointed and I was down at a meeting in Austin, why several people said, "How did this happen? Houston only has two."
So this is something that should bring a lot more attention to our area and hopefully give us a benefit with some of the programs here.
Certainly should.
What's the connection with the county historical commissions? How do they work together?
Well, the County Historical Commission is an independent organization, but they utilize the Texas Commission as a resource. So every year the Texas Commission sponsors workshops for the various county commissions, and whenever the County Commission has a question regarding historical preservation or something along that line, why they contact Austin, and they're the resource.
Do you rely a lot on those county commissions to provide information to the state commission?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of cooperative efforts.
There's a very fine interchange that is constantly occurring.
Let's talk about some of the different types of projects that go on. One of the things is placing historic markers, correct? How does that happen? How does a site get chosen? What's the process that goes through?
Well, the initiative is local. So if you have local people that feel that a specific building, for example, is worthy of this type of recognition, why there's a form that you fill out, you send it in to Austin, to the Historical Commission, and they review it, and then it is sent out to a committee. Some of the 18 commission members form a committee for that purpose, and they pass judgment, and the staff in Austin typically submits a suggestion or a recommendation, but occasionally we overrule the staff. So that's how it takes place.
Who can submit one of those
Anybody,
proposals?
anybody really, yes.
Do most of them come through agencies or come through something like the county commission, or no?
I'd say generally speaking they do. That's particularly true in the smaller rural counties. But when you come to some of the larger cities, why frequently organizations will take it upon themselves to just go directly to the state agency.
What kind of background work do people have to do to send in a proposal for a site? What types of research is involved?
Well, you need to provide all of the historic data. When was it built? Who was the architect? What was significant about it insofar as architecture is concerned, or who lived there that was unique, or not necessarily unique in the state of Texas, but unique to that particular county. So you submit that type of information.
And is there a certain number of sites that a place would have, or is it virtually limitless?
It's limitless.
You can document and you can show a need for it, then
exactly.
The commission would work on that.
Exactly.
Interesting. I understand a lot of it focuses on buildings, as you say, architectural preservation. What types of buildings are eligible for preservation? Are there different categories? Are there different types of requirements that are needed?
No, there are no particular categories other than the fact that they need to be old, and of course that's a relative term, but you wouldn't submit a structure for consideration, for example, that was less than 50 years old. But as I indicated, if it's somewhat unique insofar as architecture, style, or if it had a significant impact on the history of a county, by virtue of who lived there or occupied there, or if there were a gunfight there, for example, or something along that line.
So if you were to place a marker at a site and then want to do something with the building itself, this sounds like it would be a much more involved process. What kinds of things happen at that point?
All right, once you have received this recognition in the marker, now you're locked in. And if subsequently an attempt is made to, let's say, modernize the building for whatever reason, you have to be very careful, and it's important to contact the Historical Commission in Austin to make sure what will be acceptable, because if you undertake any significant change in the appearance, then the marker will be withdrawn because it's no longer applicable, no longer relates to the original idea.
Is there help or assistance for people that wanted to preserve a building or restore portions of a building?
There is, insofar as they will give comments as to what's acceptable or not, but you'd have to hire your own architect. And what would be advisable is that you have the architect contact the Historical Commission in Austin so that he is aware of what limits will be involved if they propose to retain that recognition.
And I imagine sometimes these projects might get expensive, might involve a little bit more work than people anticipate. Are there grants or incentives or something that are available for preserving buildings?
Occasionally there are. There's a Texas Preservation Trust Fund, which has been established by the legislature some years back, and they have provided money to get this started. In the meantime, why private donations and contributions are encouraged, and the earnings from that trust fund are available. Now, typically they wouldn't be for someone's residence, but for example, down the valley here, the San Elizario mission, the church, was badly in need of replastering. This fund a year and a half ago provided $5,000. Currently, the Socorro mission is under reconstruction and rehabilitation, and they've provided $10,000, and in all likelihood we'll obtain more in the future. But those would be examples of what would be eligible for consideration.
What types of buildings might we see in the immediate area of El Paso within the city that have been marked or preserved or at some point identified as a historic structure?
We've got several downtown. The Mills building, for example, if you're headed down there, most of it's closed up now, but outside the main entrance is a marker, which gives a brief history of the building. Across the street from it, the Plaza Hotel is another one that is marked. There are up in the Sunset Heights area, you've got some houses which have been marked, and so we've got a fair number around town.
And some of these buildings are clustered in certain areas. There are historic districts that are designated, and I understand that one of the things that the Commission's interested in is historic downtown districts and developing areas in the core of the city. Could you tell us a little bit about what they're doing with downtown areas?
All right. One of the main divisions of the Historical Commission is called the Main Street, for the Main Street program. The initial concept was to assist small cities. I think the limit was maximum of 75,000 population, to rehabilitate their downtown area. And with that Main Street program, it's a shared responsibility type of thing. The local community must provide for, in the case of communities up to 75,000, a half-time full employee to work there continuously to be involved in this. The Historical Commission, for their part, in Austin, provide all of the training and guidance, and they do this for 3 years. So it's a shared responsibility. Subsequently, and I'm not sure when, but maybe 5 years ago, why they expanded it, it was so successful to include larger cities. They, in turn, must agree to hire a full-time, 100% employee to be involved in rehabilitation and renovation of downtown.
Do we have areas of El Paso that are eligible for that are involved in any of those projects?
We would have them, they're eligible, but no community that I'm familiar with out in our part of the country has done it. You have to go over to places like Wink, who have accomplished this. I'm trying to think of where else in the neighborhood, but Wink is the first one that occurs to me.
What would be some of the reasons or one of the benefits for developing areas like that, developing a Main Street district? What kinds of things could you do?
Well, I think bottom line, and certainly this is the case for me as a retired businessman and a property owner, why it would stimulate property values downtown, which would stimulate an increase in tax revenue, which benefits all of us.
And I imagine there's different types of projects that they've done in some of these smaller cities to try to restore those areas and revitalize them. What kinds of things can you do in a downtown Main Street?
Well, one thing is to rehabilitate specific buildings, and the architectural division of the Historic Commission works hand in hand with the Main Street group to provide suggestions and guidelines as to how, for example, you could come back with a circa 1900 or 1890 appearance, so as to give it an environment, an aroma, an ambiente that you're looking for.
Sure. Are there some in our area? Are there any smaller cities in this part of the state that have done that, or they tend to be more in the
Well,
east?
you're asking me a question. I can't respond specifically. There probably are, but I don't know of any right at the moment.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about buildings. I understand that there's a focus on county courthouses.
Sure is.
And this is one of the main projects that's underway. Could you tell us a little bit about that? What are they trying to do with county courthouses?
Well, the Governor Bush, came up with the idea, and he approached the legislature on it. He felt that there were a number of just uniquely in their style and design, architectural design of courthouses around the state. Now, we've got 254 counties in the state, and there are probably 150 county courthouses that are 80 to 90 years old or older, and many of them are real charmers. The closest one that I can think of is the one in Marfa. If you've ever been to Marfa and you see that sticking up all by itself, and it's just a terrific architectural gem. And there are others all over. And many of these counties are simply not in a financial position to undertake an appropriate rehabilitation, with the idea of retaining the charm and the design, the initial design. So the governor approached the legislature to provide a fund which would assist in the preservation and rehabilitation of these buildings. And the legislature wound up appropriating $50 million for this biennium. So the Historical Commission currently has just completed the criteria that they will evaluate these courthouses, which is going to be interesting because $50 million is not going to go very far.
Right.
And you've got a lot of counties, we're estimating over 100, that are going to be requesting assistance of some kind. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm headed for Austin tomorrow, in fact, on this particular subject.
And this is a project that's going to take some time, I imagine. What is there a timetable involved?
Yeah, the $50 million was for 2 years, this biennium, and we're already 6 months past. So we've got a very short timeline, and we hope to be able to show the legislature a number of completed projects by the time they meet again, with the idea that maybe they would like to appropriate some more to continue this program.
Are some of these courthouses in danger? Or are we in danger of losing some of the courthouses?
You bet. A number of them are close to being closed up and condemned because they're so doggone old, and in many instances the electrical and mechanical part of the building is badly in need of rehabilitation, complete rebuilding, really.
We also mentioned archaeological projects. Are there any particular ones that have taken place in the El Paso area that the Commission's been involved in? Is there archaeological work going on now, or has there been in recent past?
Well, this Keystone area out here on the west side of town is certainly one that the Archaeological Division of the Historical Commission is very interested in, and have been in constant and regular contact with the organization out there, what's it called, CAPA, I think, that are managing that resource. So, yeah, they're very interested in that.
And what do archaeologists do with the commission? Do they do surveys? Do they try to determine whether there's a possibility of damaging sites? Do they try to prevent damage to sites? What types of work do they do?
All of the things you just mentioned, they do. Now, they've got a significant staff. There's something on the order of 10 or 12 people in the archaeology department in Austin. And they take a very active role in preservation and also trying to head off problems before they exist. And so they attempt to get out the word with developers, with everybody they can who might be in a position to unearth some archaeological remains that shouldn't be disturbed but should be handled carefully. And so the group in Austin are very much available to anyone who has any doubts about the fact that they may run into some of these archaeological remains.
I understand the cemeteries are another area that they look at, and we have a number of historic cemeteries in this area. What's the Commission's involvement there?
Well, they've got a part of the Division of Architecture has a subdivision that's devoted strictly to cemeteries. And it's, again, one of being a resource, advice. And they've got historical information that they accumulate. And they also will provide these markers, which will tend to ensure that the cemetery will not be violated.
Okay. Let's move on to one of the broader goals of the Commission, and that is heritage tourism. Talk a little bit about what some of the projects are involved there. What is heritage tourism? We hear the term a lot. What exactly is it?
Well, I didn't realize until I got on the Commission the largest industry in the world is tourism. And in the United States, it's the third largest industry. And one of the fastest growing segments of tourism, the tourism industry, is historical and heritage type tourism. People looking for their roots, people who have an interest in history and would like to know more about what happened in a particular local location. So recognizing the economic possibilities, the legislature has apportioned a significant amount of money to the Historical Commission for the purpose of stimulating this type of tourism. And along that line, why the Commission has designated certain trails, which the Highway Department designated some 30 years ago around the state. There were 10 of them. For particular emphasis, and they would provide money, upfront money, to assist counties on the particular trail to get going.
Is our county on one of those trails?
I'm sorry to say that they're not. The first trail I might show you was what they call the Forts Trail, and this is a area from northeast of Abilene down through San Angelo and southwest, where a number of forts which were built in the 1850s for Indian control. They have developed quite an interesting trail there with forts that have been reconstructed, and they have programs at these individual forts. In our particular case, we're on what was termed the Mountain Trail, which starts from down in Alpine and runs up in a northwesterly direction to here. I thought we had this thing wired, and I had worked it all out down in Austin, and got shot down here about 4 months ago by the county judges in Alpine and Fort Davis, who were concerned that the ranchers' interests somehow might be violated by our giving a lot of publicity and promotion to this so-called mountain trail. So right now, we're not worrying about it.
Are we tied at all into the Camino Real project? Is the Texas Historical Commission doing anything with that?
Well, you're talking about the Camino Real project in the sense of from our area up through Santa Fe, let's say from Chihuahua up to Santa Fe. They're not, well, I shouldn't say that. They are. The El Paso Community Foundation have taken the lead on that. Gary Williams, whom you have interviewed here before, has really been very active in it. The Historical Commission has provided $10,000 to the Community Foundation for that purpose. So in that sense, yes, they are taking a position in it.
And briefly, the Commission's also involved in education, letting people know about some of the activities that are going on. What types of things do they do to get the word out?
Well, I showed you the Forts Trail. We've recently came out with a very interesting brochure, The African Americans in Texas, Historical and Cultural Legacies, which has proven to be a very popular brochure. We've got that area between Laredo and Brownsville, Los Caminos del Rio, is another one. They have a quarterly publication, The Medallion, which I have here, and people can, all you have to do is write in and say you'd like to get on that mailing list.
They'll put you on the mailing list for that. So there's a lot of ways that
there are. We have a very active communications department.
And they get information out to the schools as well? Do they provide information to colleges and schools so that people are aware of the projects that are underway?
And they've got several trunk shows that they can bring out to schools, for example.
Okay. Well, it certainly sounds like there's a lot of interesting work being done by the Commission, and hopefully the El Paso area will benefit from having 2 members on the Commission. And we want to thank you very much for coming here today and telling us a little bit about restoration and preservation and some of the educational projects that are underway. And we want to make sure that our listeners are aware of the fact that the Commission's involved in a variety of different programs throughout the state and throughout the county. And I want to thank you for coming in and visiting with us today.
My pleasure. It's been a real
And we want to thank all of you as well for joining us here today on Along the Rio Grande. And until the next program, good day.